Well, joining us this week on the program is Yvette Kinkade. She's from an organisation called Track Day Club, and one thing that they're doing, we always talk about diversity in motorsport at the moment. One area that we've been looking at for a long time here on the program is trying to get more young women involved, women in general involved in the sport. We know from the feedback we get every week on the program that there are a lot of women who are really interested in motorsport. And of course, you keep hearing all the time from the people in the know, mostly men, who say there's no problems at all. Everything's fine. Everybody's welcome. Well, is that the case? She has just come back from a weekend at Wakefield Park where she's run a women's track day, and she's going to tell us about that, why it was needed, what she set up, and how the weekend went. So, Yvette, welcome to In Pit Lane.
Thank you, Brett. Thanks for having me.
So, tell us about the track days. First of all, let's start on the weekend. How did the weekend go?
Well, the weekend we had 34 women due to participate. We had some very serious rain. So we saw a few of those women not be able to get down from Queensland, and a couple of the other girls just looking, one was unwell, one went out in sympathy, and we had one non-attend. So we ended up with 30 women on track for the day, which was super exciting to see so many women during a pandemic and in such torrential conditions on track.
So clearly there was plenty of enthusiasm there. I mean, with the conditions as they were, I mean, obviously they're probably running in their road cars and that sort of thing. So you've got to be pretty careful. I mean, how did you modify the weekend considering the conditions were so bad?
So we decided to take obviously speed out of the equation, which then removed a lot of the intimidation factor for a lot of women. There was more a camaraderie and a interest in getting involved, in getting on the track without the speed, having some fun, learning a little bit about how the car performs in those wet weather conditions, and learning that it's okay to go off. So there would have been quite a number of offs throughout the entire day, but that made for removing that fear of going off on the track.
Tell us about the motivation for starting this thing. Tell us about the why do we still need a special day for women in motorsport?
Well, my first experience in 2012 unfortunately wasn't a very good one. I turned up at my first track day, and I was the only woman participating. I was made to feel very unwelcome. My car was ridiculed. I was a bit of a joke, actually. I was the point of where I was a bit of a joke. So that first experience was extremely intimidating. It was unnerving, and it wasn't very welcoming. So that was enough to create a purposeful mission for myself, and for all the women behind me to be able to go to a track or motorsport event of any type, and to change that ethos. And that was how we ended up creating the Track Day Club in 2012, with a mission that everyone should be welcome and there should be inclusivity, and it should just never ever be something that I had experienced. It was a great motivator.
With what you experienced out there, I mean, it was interesting. I think I said to you when we organised the interview that just recently Mumbrella, the media trade publication, had said that they thought that supercars had lost a real opportunity during their virtual races to get more women involved and to be more inclusive. And of course, all the usual suspects jumped up and said, this is absolute rubbish. There is no discrimination. There is no problem at all. Women, everybody is welcome in our sport. Obviously, you didn't find that, but it's an interesting thing that you say. I mean, it's sort of a subtle discrimination in the fact that I know from women that I've been involved with the sport as well, with my best friend Melissa. There was a lot of sort of you've done very well for a girl.
It's quite condescending. That's right. Yeah, it is. There is that attitude. It is very much still a boys' club, and while I think perception is that perhaps it isn't, there are a number of women that are still working extremely hard to fight this sentiment that is around motorsport right now. And admittedly, there are way more women involved. There are there's far more access to motorsport for women. But it still is very condescending, and also I find a lot of men don't like to see a woman overtake them. So we see that in, I also manage a race team, Team Virag Racing in New South Wales Production Touring, and we have a driver, Corinne Virag, and she feels and sees a lot of intimidation. And while they're all very encouraging, there is, if she's passing them, there is some competitors that don't like that and will do anything to make sure she doesn't. So we do see it. It's not a great place to be. It is what it is. The thing is to make it become more aware about it, for people to get on board and participate, and see that often at our days, women are driving some of the highest horsepowered cars. So that can be a little intimidating as well. Yeah.
Motorsport Australia, of course, has a Women in Motorsport group. What would are you a part of that, and what would you like to see them actually do? Because I have to say that like in our feedback from them, we get sort of there are press releases, there are things in the what used to be the CAMS magazine, but like what are the practical things that you think they should be doing to encourage young women to get involved in the sport?
I think they're on the right track. They need to be doing. I think they need to be a little bit more hands-on. We work with AASA through not through our permits for our events are all through AASA, and we have found them to be just very supportive of what we're doing and encouraging, and through obvious press releases, through being there on site and assisting and ensuring that everything is delivered and is on par. But I think it's more about exposure. Women need to be seeing it in the everyday press. We're seeing big magazines, women magazines. No one picks these stories up. They're not interested. It stays within the motorsport community. So it needs to be out there in the general press, and the conversations that doing a motorsport track day or some sort of motorsport is okay. It's not, because that's what's keeping it in that boys realm, in that boys club, is that it isn't in mainstream press. We don't see those stories. We see the stories about the young grassroots racers, or we see those stories about the Dare to Be Different program, which is a great program for young schoolgirls to encourage them into that. But there's nothing that really in, say, the general media, where we see quite a lot of stories about women in motorsport and what they're doing and how accessible it is, because everyone says to us, what, you can bring your car and get on track? Yes. You can come. It's a great environment. It's so much fun. You won't know yourself. Your confidence will just be lifted to an enormous, level. It's a great empowering environment.
Well, we'll find out more about the track days and about your experience in motorsport in general, including the work with the production cars and your plans for the rest of the year as well. But we're going to take a break now on In Pit Lane. When we come back, we'll have more from Yvette Kinkade. You're watching In Pit Lane, Channel 31 Melbourne, Channel 44 Adelaide, and of course the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to In Pit Lane. Well, our guest tonight is Yvette Kinkade from Track Day Club. We were talking about her women's-only motorsport day at Wakefield Park on the weekend. How many of these sort of days do you run over the year, and is that all you do in Track Day Club?
No, Track Day Club is for everybody. The women's events have been running approximately 2 a year. We've been running women's events inside the complete Track Day piece. So within these days there, we would have around 80 participants, 80 drivers, and we have been building that. We've been seeing the participation rates for women increase since we've started doing women's track days in 2013. So those, we keep them quite separate with their while the day is together, the women are separated, the entry piece is separated. There's a nurturing piece that is very different for women, because women experience, a lot of, not to have any less stress, but, trying to manage between home life, work life, and then find some time to do something that is a complete day is a really, time management is a big thing. So those women are, need a little bit more encouragement, I think. And I think that's what holds women back a little bit in motorsport, sadly, that, between being mums and running families and having a career and then finding time for sport, a lot of women feel guilty for taking the time for themselves, particularly a day or an overnight event where they'd stay the night before because the track's at Wakefield Park. So I think that's the piece we like to work on when we have our women's track days, and that is the mindset piece, that it's okay to not have your inner critic or your inner coach, whatever you want to call it, mainly your inner critic, telling you in the background, you know what, you can't do this, you don't deserve this, and making you feel guilty for it. It's about time management, good time management, and being able to have come and do something that is quite exhilarating to do and quite empowering, is to get on track and have some fun in your car.
The other thing is, of course, with motorsport, we've seen this in sports like AFL and particularly cricket, that once you get more women involved at the competitive level and at the top level, it encourages more young women to become involved. And I remember going to see women's cricket matches back even 15 years ago, and the standard was appalling. And now you have a look at it, and the standard is literally world class. And we saw at the MCG how many people they got for the final of the Women's World Cup. So how important for the sport do you think it is that we try and attract more women, especially for the long-term future of the sport?
I think it's imperative. We were only talking about the women's cricket, a group of us, just the other night, how that's completely changed its dynamic, and that is because of more women watching it, spectating it, enjoying it. So for motorsport, I think it's exactly the same thing. This is a grassroots entry level. This is, we encourage people to come along, not to take the discipline not to go to a further discipline like a super sprint or a regularity, but just to come along, enjoy the day for what it is, create it as being your sport, and then instead of doing a round of golf or doing something like that once a month, you come and do a track day with no pressure to grow or increase, but just not grow or increase outside of that discipline, but just stay within that track day realm. And if you choose to go into super sprints or hill climbs or motorcarnas, the options are there, but there's no pressure to move if you don't want to, and that can help you build your racecraft. It can help you build your confidence. It can help you hone your driving skills. It's a great community environment with like-minded people. So I think it's imperative, and then from that we'll build out into more interest in other motorsports and watching it, and participating, volunteering imperatively. Volunteers, we can't do without them. So I think that's the bonus of exposing more women to this grassroots, very, very accessible type of motorsport.
Well, if anybody wants to find out more information about the track days from anywhere in Australia, where do they go? Do you have a website, and how do people contact you?
Yeah, you can go to trackdayclub.com.au. There is a / for women's events there, and you can find out all the details there. And across the whole brand, there's a lot of information and details on the website. I'd just like to also say about 2021, we have an amazing women's program coming up, which will be a 5-part success program that is based on 2 track days and some information in between that on education, on mindset, and on empowerment. So you'll come out at the end of the 2nd track day with a remarkable difference from having done the steps through the process. We're releasing that very shortly, and it will run from May to July.
As we've said over the years on In Pit Lane, I think we've probably had every young woman driver in at least in Melbourne has been a guest on the program. And the interesting thing is that many of them, particularly in karts, they get to that 16, 17-year-old age group, and then suddenly you say, well, whatever happened to that person? You never sort of seem to find out. So if we can keep those young women involved, because there's no doubt that they're enthusiastic as kids, it's keeping them enthusiastic and giving them those opportunities. Yvette, thanks for joining us here on In Pit Lane. Good luck with the program, and certainly when you're doing something down here in Melbourne or over in South Australia at some stage, or in fact anywhere around Australia, please keep us informed, because I'm sure a lot of our viewers would like to find out. But for right now, Yvette Kinkade, thanks for joining us in Pit Lane.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Well, once again, thank you to Yvette Kinkade from Track Day Club. And if you want to find out more about it, go and check out their website. As I've said over the years, a lot of women have come up to us, at various race meetings and even out in the street and said, how much they love motorsport, but they just don't feel comfortable being a part of it. And I think that anybody who sort of, dismisses out of hand how, women feel about taking part and being a part of that situation. I mean, in most cases, 95% of cases, the sport is very welcoming and very inclusive. Unfortunately, like in any area of life, there is that small percentage of absolute arseholes who ruin it for everybody. So let's get behind those sorts of programs. And by the way, if there's anybody from Motorsport Australia, from the Women in Motorsport and the Dare to Be Different program, we'd love to talk about that as well, as it's just been very hard to get people from there to come in and talk about it. But, well, next week on the program, who knows what we'll have. I mean, as we say, it's all very fluid here at the moment. So from all of us here at In Pit Lane, until we see you again next week, thanks for joining us and bye for now.